Hello, and welcome to one of the problems in Chapter 3, which is about variables. What I've done is I've chosen exercise 7, which is a change application. Now, I always assign this, and individuals always have some sort of problem, and I walk them through it. But I thought it'd be easier simply to demonstrate how to use this, because this is one of the great, first really good examples of how to use variables. Secondly, it's a really good example of modulus division and kind of an accumulator. It has a lot of things are always built into it. In every particular chapter, you have the baby step problems, and then you have a problem that's, oh my gosh, I got a lot to do. And this would be one of them. So it says, create a change application that prompts the user for an amount of less than 100, then displays the minimum number of coins necessary to make the change when coins is clicked. The change can be made up of quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies. Application interface should look similar to change in cents, quarters, dimes, nickels, pennies, and here. So what I've done is I've already started some of the program, right? I've created the enter the change in cents, 98 for 0.98 cents. That gives the user more guidance as to what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish. I find it to be helpful. And I have also created a labels for quarters, dimes, nickels, pennies. And these items here, which we'll be interfacing with is, well, for instance, text change is this text change here, LBL quarter, penny, nickels, LBL instructions, which is this label right here, and LBL dimes. I haven't renamed these, but in the most ideal circumstance, you would call it LBL quarter or LBL quarter label, LBL dime label, right? Some people like to combine these. I like to keep them separate so it's a little bit easier to work with. All right, so what we're going to, and the button is called BTN change. BTN change, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the change button. So I'm going to double click that. I accidentally double clicked on the instructions earlier, so I'm going to get rid of that. All right, so we're in BTN change. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dim int change input, and that's what I'm going to call it, as integer, right? And int change input is going to equal me dot txt change. So it's going to take in the value of txt change and put it in the int change input. I'm going to call this val. Right? So that way it can actually convert it from the string that's inside the text box to an actual numerical value. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate the number of quarters. So I take LBL quarters, right? LBL quarter, QUARTER, right? Equals int change input, and this is our whole number division. That's the one that, for instance, if I return it by 25 and I enter, let's say, 85, it's going to return 3. So a lot of people solve this in different ways, but this is the way I solve it, and it also gives the best example of variable usage, change, different things along those lines. So in this particular case, it'll take the change input, it'll whole number division by 25. So if I enter in 98, it'll return 3, meaning 75 cents is accounted for. So that's awesome. Then what I can do is I can say LBL quarter, my bad. This should actually end up being dim int quarter as integer, because we want to have it pass through a variable. Ideally, you could assign it to the label if you wanted to, but I'm not going to do that, just so you have to use more, or you are able to see more uses of variables, right? And then I can actually do LBL quarter, right? Dot text equals int quarter. Could you have just assigned it directly to the label? Sure, but I want to do that variable steps to make it easy for you to kind of see what's going on. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do int change input equals int change input minus INT quarter times 25. And what I'm doing there is I'm accounting for the quarters that have been determined that are there, and then I'm taking them out of the change. So the next time when I do the next step, which is divide, I'm just going to copy this to make it real easy. So you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Except this time it's going to be INT dimes, right? Divided by 10. So that gives us the number of dimes. And this is LVL. Is it dimes? Oh, that's why. Didn't declare, which is fine. What happened? So now we want to do dim. I'm going to go ahead and dim out dime as integer, dim int nickel as integer, dim int penny as integer. Okay, so there's my int dimes. I calculate the number of dimes, put it here. Then I'm going to take int dime equals, LVL dime equals INT dime. So now, so is it dimes? Let's go back and check. And I'm doing this, LVL dimes, okay. So I'm doing this kind of on the fly, so you're able to see the way, errors are made. You just have to watch what it is and make the modifications because you forget the names of things. So I'm looking at, there's LVL dimes, there's LVL nick is the next one, and LVL penny is the one after that. All right, that works for me. So then I take this all again. I want to take this first because you have to account for that amount of things being used. So if you're doing dimes, it's dime times 10. So I've accounted for that. And I'm going to take this whole block of code. I'm going to copy it down here. And now I'm going to do nickel. And I'm going to divide it by 5, because that's our nickel. And then I'm going to do LVL nick, divided equals INT nickel. And then I have my INT change input equals INT change input nickel times 5. So what it's doing is it's counting for the 5 cents. And then the last one, which is, I've always liked this one, people kind of weirded, INT penny equals INT change input. Because at each level as you've gone through, you've already accounted for all the other coins, and so now you're just left with the penny. And then you just say LVL penny dot text equals. And if you want to group them, which is always good, you group them like this. Of course, I want to do some sort of comments. So I can do this block calculates the number of quarters and accounts for them. Because that's essentially what this does. And then I can actually copy that here. So let's take a look, make sure it works. Once again, I've declared change input, quarter, dime, nickel, penny. I've taken in from the input txt change, which is right there, and it assigns it to INT change input. It then calculates the amount of quarters in INT change input and puts it in quarter. Remember, this is our whole number division. Then what I do is I take LVL quarter.text equal in quarter, so I'm taking it and giving feedback to the user. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the amount of quarters out of the amount of change, so then I can move on to dimes. And I do that consecutively again with dimes, and then I do it with nickels, and then I do it with pennies. So let's take a look. Alright, so let's run this thing. I'm going to take the code over here so you're able to see it a little bit. And also see the actual code. Okay, here I am. I've reached a point I haven't executed this code yet, but I'm going to put in 78 cents as an example. Okay, so I'm going to push change. There's been an issue. How about me.txt change.text? Okay, that works. So let's try it again. So I can run it again. Bring it up. There we go. 78 quarters 3, pennies 3, and all it did is went right down the line. Okay. And don't worry about making little mistakes. I thought, oh, I'll redo it so they can't see the mistake. You know what? Being able to see the mistake, knowing that hey, this is how I correct it, is very, very important. All right. I didn't put .text on it. It wasn't the end of the world. I put .text. It was all good. So it takes in the value from this, right? Takes in value from txt change, converts it to an actual number, puts it in change input. And it goes through all these items, so it finds 3 quarters. There's right there, it finds 3 quarters, it counts for 3 quarters. 10 doesn't go into the change because all that's left is 3 pennies. 5 doesn't go in, okay, and now we're down to pennies. Now if I did, let's say, 98 cents, right, and I calculate it again, now it would change. There's 75, 85, 95, 98. So if I wanted to do, let's do 93. Okay, now I've got 75, 85, 90, and 3. And that's all there is. But you have to think about the interplay between your variable usage, your calculations of values, and how that they would fall out as you go through. And this is kind of your first experience with variables, so you have to kind of keep that in mind as you go through. It's very powerful, and you will be using it very often. But this gives you an idea of what a good program would look like, with naming conventions in place, with comments in place, and this gives you that structure as you go forward. And if you have any questions concerning variable use or this particular item, make sure you can address that to your substitute, or you can post a question on your resources and go from there. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon. Take care.